So yes, it is a fact. Shippers are sometimes going to ask you questions that you are not going to be able to provide them answers to. You are not going to be able to facilitate everything it is that they want you to do. But there are some times that they're going to ask you relatively straightforward, common questions that as a freight broker, you should be able to understand that topic and provide answers to the questions that they're asking, lead them in the right direction. Because it's not always good just to say, I'll get back with you, because it may indicate that you don't know something that you should know. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about some common questions that shippers ask you to help you prepare for what you should know. So when those questions come up, you'll be ready to go and give them good answers. So come on inside, sit back, relax, and let's get down into the business. All right, so let me throw a scenario at you that you very likely could get from a shipper. And the question is, will you be able to facilitate this type of load? The load needs to be picked up on Monday morning at 6 a.m. It's going to pick up and it needs to go to a destination 1,000 miles away. And they would like to know from you if you could pick that load up Monday morning at 6 a.m. and deliver it Tuesday at 3 p.m. Now, there's some things that you have to consider here. If you're just using owner-operators, it's very likely that you are probably not going to be able to get that load there, picking up at 6 a.m. Monday and delivering 3 p.m. on Tuesday because of hours of service regulations, and a driver won't be able to drive that far that fast. So the question is, can you facilitate that type of load move? And if you can, how will you be able to do that? Now, in a nutshell, what the shipper is asking you is, do you have access to team drivers? They may just come out and ask you, hey, do you have access to team drivers? We're going to need this load picked up on Monday and delivered on Tuesday. But if they ask you in the way that I just asked you, you want to let them know, yes, we have access to team drivers. The only question is, will we be able to get coverage on Monday? So we'll go in and check with our network to make sure that we can get coverage. And if we can cover it, we'll get back with you and let you know. Or we'll send you over a rate request. Now, if you notice how I answered that question, I immediately said, yes, we can get access to team drivers. I'm going to recommend that you do the same, even if you're not sure if you can access team drivers. And the reason for that is because you are a freight broker. That's what we do as freight brokers. We go out and we access trucking capacity, whether that's single truck drivers or team drivers. So I think it's always good to answer that type of question in the affirmative, but don't overpromise and underdeliver. If you see how I answered the remainder of that question, I said, you know what, we're going to go out and find out if we can get coverage on the day that you're requesting, because there is a possibility we may not be able to get it on Monday. We've already talking about right now it's Friday, so it might be a little bit late. You might not be able to get it on Monday, but you're not overpromising saying for sure you're going to get it on Monday, but you're going to check with your network, see if capacity is available, and if it is, we'll send you out a rate request. Now, the next question that I want to make you aware of is sometimes your shippers will request that you have load locks, or you use some type of balloon on these loads to make sure that they are secure. So they may ask you the question, have you been using load locks? And you might want to answer that question straightforward and say, no, we haven't been using load locks to this point because we haven't had any problems with load shifting. But if you would like for us to use load locks, I'll just make sure that our drivers show up with at least 2 load locks. When it comes to those balloons, drivers don't usually have those balloons, and even shipping facilities don't have them very regularly. So we won't promise them that we're going to use the balloons, but we will use the load locks. Most drivers are going to have at least 2 load locks, and what I would have the driver do, or ask the driver to do, is put 1 load lock in the middle and 1 load lock at the end of the load to make sure that the load is secure. Because at the end of the day, it is the driver's responsibility to make sure that that load is secure. Now, the next question that you could very likely get from a shipper is, hey, Brandon, we need you to provide us an all-in rate on a pickup to 3 different destinations. Now, they could be saying that because they want to get an idea of what it's going to cost for those particular lanes, or they're saying it because they need those loads moved immediately and they want you to provide rates. So let's just say they wanted you to provide an all-in rate on those 3 lanes. Well, what you would do is go in and give them a line haul rate plus the fuel surcharge. A lot of times shippers are going to ask you to provide a line haul rate only, and then they'll go back and add the fuel surcharge to the tender, and you'll get the line haul plus the fuel surcharge on that tender. But you definitely don't want to go back and ask, hey, what is an all-in rate? As a freight broker, you should know the different types of rates. So when they ask you for a line haul rate or they ask you for an all-in rate, just make sure that you're prepared to provide the right rate. Now, the next scenario is something that happens relatively often in the freight movement world. Sometimes you'll have shippers and they'll come to you and say, hey, Brandon, we need you to quote a load that's moving from point A to point B. It's a total of 17,000 pounds. So they'll send out the information, and it is what they said. It's a total of 17,000 pounds. Load is moving from point A to point B. You give them a quote on that load, and they come back and say, okay, we're good to go. We're going to send you over a tender giving you the authority to move the load. You get the tender, it's 17,000 pounds just like they said. Now it's the day that the load moves, and the shipper calls and says, hey, Brandon, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but we really need to add an additional 7,000 pounds to this load. Is it going to cost us anything additional to add this weight? And the first thing that I would do is I'd tell them, hey, I'm not sure exactly if we'll even be able to facilitate an additional 7,000 pounds or what it's going to cost. I'm going to need to contact the carrier to find that out first, because you don't know what the carrier has on his plate. He may have been using the additional room on the truck for another load. So I want to find that out first. And then I will find out from him if there's going to be an additional charge. Now, usually when you're dealing with owner-operators, there's not an additional charge for the additional weight. But anytime you're adding weight to a truck, we're not quoting at 17,000 pounds now. We're quoting at the additional 7,000 pounds, which is a total of 24,000 pounds. So that's going to change the rate. So you want to make sure that you're charging shippers additional, because you're not going to give them the same rate that you would give them at 17,000 pounds. So yes, it's going to cost us some additional money, and then you can give them what the additional charge is for the additional weight. Now, these are just a few of the common questions that shippers sometimes ask. And no, you're not going to have answers to all of the questions that shippers ask. But when you're talking about common everyday questions that come up about load movement, we want to have answers to those questions. And also remember that when the facts change, when those numbers change, rates change too. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you want to learn more about the freight broker business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series, and it's titled How the Load Movement Process Works. It gives you a chance to come into the office with me, and you can watch over my shoulder as I move loads, talk to shippers and carriers to give you a better understanding of how this business works. Now, just in case you haven't gotten your load board just yet, I happen to think that TRUCKSTOP has the best load board on the market. I've been using that load board now for the last 8 years. TRUCKSTOP has given us an opportunity to give everybody within our network a load board, the pro version of their load board, for 50% off for the first 3 months. I think that's a dynamic way to get started in your freight broker business. I'm also going to leave you a free video right here showing you exactly how to use a load board. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.